Time to book our tickets for our virtual tour of Waterford treasures in the good company of Eamonn McEneaney. Eamonn, good morning to you.
Morning, Ollie. Good morning, Maria.
Good morning,
listeners.
Good to hear you. Well, you're aware too, just the sad breaking news of Brendan Boyer's passing, one in Vegas.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. He's a lovely man. We have a lovely we did a wonderful exhibition a few years ago on him. I was actually going to talk about it on Monday.
Is that right?
That's coincidental, yeah. The Viking Triangle produced two great musicians, and one, William Vincent Wallace, of course, over in Colbeck Street, and Brendan Boyer was born here in Bailey's New Street. So, I'm so sorry to hear that. Rest his soul. He's a lovely, lovely man.
And it's mad to think you were going to cover that.
On Monday, because we have an exhibition about him in the Bishop's Palace, Do
you know something? Our head of programming, Michael Byrne, was organising documentaries for the weekend, and more than a week back he organised the documentary for this coming Monday between 6 and 7 p.m. Matt Keane's conversation with Brendan Boyer.
Oh, isn't that amazing? That's amazing,
Talk about synchronicity and all the rest of it.
Synchronicity,
well,
exactly.
God rest him in the bed of heaven to him.
Yeah.
Well, now, what are we talking about this morning?
Today we're talking about another great Waterford man called John Hearne. He was born in William Street in 1893. And by the time he was 10, his dad was mayor of Waterford twice in 1902 and 1903. His father, some of your older listeners would remember Hearne and Cal's. They kept operating in the 1950s, and they'd heard maybe their parents speaking about it. And he owned Hearne and Cal's. They used to make boots and shoes, and it was a big retail shop and employed a lot of people. But he was very, very bright, probably the greatest legal mind Ireland ever produced. And in 1937 he wrote the Irish Constitution, and so huge boast for Waterford. And we must remember, sometimes we take these things for granted. This was a time when the rise of Hitler in Germany, Franco in Spain, and Mussolini in Italy, when democracies that had succeeded through the First World War were now all turning fascist. And he wrote the 1937 Constitution.
By golly, I never knew that, Eamon. Turbulence.
It was a very turbulent time. And in fact, the Irish Constitution is one of the oldest constitutions in the world. So it's a great sense of the Irish people and their respect for democracy. And he's, as I said, he's the man who wrote it. De Valera called him the chief architect and draftsman of the Constitution. We have a big collection of his stuff, including the table he wrote the Constitution on. When he had written the Constitution, then the government decided to in his later years to reward him by making him our representative in Canada. And he couldn't call him an ambassador yet, because we still hadn't broken that link with Britain by declaring a republic, completely broken the link with Britain. And he was at the famous dinner in Ottawa when Costello, unknowns to everybody, including himself, decided to, in a fit of pique, decided to say Ireland is going to declare a republic and cause consternation in Dublin and in Ottawa.
Talk about indigestion right there.
Indigestion, exactly. Yeah, he did it because he felt he was being snubbed by the Canadians and not being properly treated. Then the De Valera government decided that, of course, once then we declared a republic, we started appointing ambassadors. Before that, of course, we were still under the British Commonwealth system, so we there weren't formally called ambassadors. But then in 1950 he got the job of being made our first ambassador to the United States of America. And what he did was he began that tradition, which is really successful in profiling Ireland. We talk about every St. Patrick's Day of giving St. Bowl of Shamrock to the President of the United States. He came up with that idea, and really it was a masterstroke of marketing for Ireland and promotion for Ireland. Yeah, and of course here we have a bust of him now, again by private subscription, organised by the museum in what's been called by the council Constitution Square. That's what wasn't the garden of the Bishop's Palace between the cathedral and the Bishop's Palace. That piece of ground there, it's called Constitution Square now since 2017 to mark the 80th anniversary of the Constitution, and there's a bust of Hearne there.
Great stuff. Well, another interesting chapter. We appreciate that. Thank you very much for that, Eamon.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend yourself.
Likewise, Ollie. Enjoy the good weather. Bye, Maria.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.